All right, looks like we're actually live now. It says start broadcast. I haven't used Hangouts on here in a little bit. We're used to using other programs now that are more flashy and more interesting, but here we are. So today, for those who are not aware and those who weren't paying attention earlier, on Modern Day Debates channel, me and Craig, and then Dan from Objectively Dan, and then also James, who's the host of the Modern Day Debate channel, had a discussion on whether Christians and atheists can be friends. So Craig, would you like to sum up? Maybe I need sleep before I go on air again.
Take a real quick nap, dude. I got it from here.
A quick nap.
I don't trust you with my channel, Ocean.
Yes, you do.
I trust you with my channel on Thursdays. Does that count?
Okay, fine. Deal.
Craig, this is where you speak.
Should I sum up? You want me to sum it up right now?
Sum it up, buddy.
So,
good.
The gist of the conversation. Well, first he started off with a little bit of a I don't know, a teaser on, is atheism a hate cult? I guess he was trying to poison the well a little bit, get us all bloodthirsty for each other's, get us fighting. But then we sort of moved past that, and the gist of the conversation was, can atheists and Christians be friends? Actually, I thought the conversation was great. I thought it was a really, I really thought it was a good, well-rounded conversation. We talked a lot about implicit biases and how that interferes with friendships when you if you're raised up in a church group to think that all atheists are baby-eating, like amoral psychos, that's going to tend to impede your friendships with them. So when you meet them in real life and find out that, only some of them are, it tends to be it tends to help you get along better. But overall, I thought it was a really good, really productive conversation. What would you say, Mr. Sears?
I'd say it was a pretty good conversation. I think that it could have been very different had it had different theists and atheists on. But I'm glad that we got the group that we did, because we had a very agreeable group.
Do you have atheist friends that would answer that negative and mean it?
I know
that seems to be the implication.
Would do that.
I know, I agree with Ocean. I know of atheists who would do that, but I don't know if any of them are my friends. If they are, then if they'd let me know, that would be interesting. I'd have no issue having that conversation with them. But as for whether or not there are atheists who think that, of course. But whether or not there's atheists within my friend group, I'm not certain. I want to say no, but if I say no, I'll be proven wrong within an hour.
Right, exactly. Well, the one thing that I think is imperative if you're trying to interact with people who you disagree with on anything is that there's got to be a time where you just kind of lay your sword down and you stop trying to impose your position on them, and you just hang out and talk about whatever, Kevin Sorbo in the Hercules movies, whatever we're talking about.
Well, I get, at what point, at what point do you have your friend who's say you're an atheist, you have a friend who's a Christian. At what point does their Christianity intersect with your ability to play like Super Smash Brothers together, or any multiplayer game together? And if it doesn't, then why does it even have to factor into the conversation? Unless you guys want to have that conversation,
right? Or the conversation organically comes up in the course of events. There are both Christians and atheists who will never not. Like with Christians, they kind of push you a little bit to be like that. I was a little bit like that the first couple of years I was a Christian, because they kind of say, did you witness to the people at work? Did you do this? Did you bug them about Jesus? Everywhere you go. But I kind of got over that, I'd say, by year 3 or 4.
That's where you've got like you've got for the NIFB crowd, they've got soul winning. If you aren't actively going out and soul winning, they have an issue with it. If you're not knocking on doors for the Jehovah's Witnesses, or if you're not witnessing for the Mormons, those are groups of Christians that actively say, oh, did you do this? Oh, well, you didn't? Well, then that's a problem.
Right.
For some.
And I felt some pressure like that when I first became a Christian. Like I was working at a health food supermarket, and I was a lot more like aggressively Christian, trying to route conversations back to Christianity, but I don't do that at all anymore. And actually, I think that's a better, even if your goal is ultimately evangelical, I think it makes a lot more sense to just be like normal. That speaks louder to people about Christianity, because that's a big hurdle. Is that, or potentially a big hurdle, but I don't know. What would you say?
I'd say it can definitely be a big hurdle. You've got you've got some atheists that would probably just go, well, why are you hanging out with Christians? They think you should burn in hell, right? Then there's Christians who do the exact same thing, where they're like, why are you hanging out with those atheists? They're ultimately going to burn in hell, right? And then you've got the polytheist there, and you're like, why are you hanging out with that polytheist? That Satan created hell, right? As the biggest misunderstanding ever.
What was the polytheist position? Did you say that you don't think they can get along, or what did you say, Ocean?
Yeah, I'm still here. So, as far as whether or not people like atheists and Christians can be friends, they tend. It can be fine. I've noticed and I have friends that are Christians as well. But I have noticed a kind of an odd thing about a friendship with a Christian, especially. There's a lot of times I don't find this to be a problem, because a lot of Christians that I know aren't quite this kind of Christian, but there is a kind of Christian that is like, you're going to hell. And it's difficult to be friends with somebody who believes that the only way to heaven is through the salvation of Jesus Christ. And if you're not that, then you're going to a fiery burning place for eternity. And that the Christian thinks that this should happen, that this ought happen. I do find that there's a difficulty that in the back of my mind, I know that this friend thinks that given my conditions, I ought burn in hell for eternity. That's the only issue, I guess.
Yeah, but there are some Christians that don't even hold that that's the case.
Right. Yeah, and if there's a Christian, yeah, that's okay. But then, that's a minority among Christians. Let's be fair. Like if I'm in Kansas, any Christian that I'm going to be friends with generally is going to be that kind of Christian.
I'm in Georgia, and most Christians that I can become friends with generally here are that
in Georgia?
Christian. Yeah, I know, right? It's weird. Wait, where are you?
But yeah, I feel that.
Also, we do have a super chat, if I can interject real quick. Craig Lee just said, and I know that's definitely a different Craig than the Craig here. Said he was in a Christian cult for a year. Talk with me one day about this topic. I still love them, but ...
That could be interesting.
At some point that would be interesting. Just trying to go through the ins and outs of how that worked. What denomination were they? What practices did they do?
That'd be a good hammered out episode. I think we should keep in contact with this person. Jump on the Discord.
Yeah, if you're not, Craig Lee, if you're not in the Discord already, go ahead and hop in there. If you are in the Discord, then tag me in there real quick and let me know.
Yeah, we can do like a pre-interview, see what's going on.
Yep, I think we should probably put a channel in there, hammered out pre-interviews.
Yeah, we should.
Thing that we should do.
Or the voice channel and all. Like people can also bring up ideas and stuff like that in the Discord. Anyway, housekeeping. But to the point that I was saying is that like with conservative Christians, a lot of them are great people and everything. But then there's that thing in the back of your mind where it's like, oh wait, this person does think that given my beliefs, given my conditions, their religious belief is that I should be punished for all eternity for this position that I have.
Sometimes when there's a difference between a position that someone holds philosophically and I guess you're saying that they kind of hold it personally. Like if you actually ask them about it, they go like, yeah, you are going to burn in hell.
Not necessarily me. Like it's not, I don't think that it's like personal. It's
sometimes
more like
they treat it like a brute fact. Sometimes
it's not like, compare it with racism. It's more like I hesitate to say this, but it's like somebody saying, not necessarily that you're a bad person because you're black, but it's like, no, all black people are bad, or that, it's that kind of thing. Because I don't think that it's necessarily geared towards me personally, but it is geared towards like the non-Christian standpoint. Like
Right.
Like somebody I'm not Christian. So there's a lot of people that I know that are Christian, and some of them probably hold this position. And it's like, well, should we be friends at that point? It's like, if you hold this position about me, about people like me, is this a there's a disconnect there, definitely, that I think should at least be considered.
On a personal level, this gets hard to explain, but sometimes there's a difference between
there's a difference between the call from person.
Yeah, exactly. There's a difference between like a position that someone holds philosophically, and when you ask them about it, yes, they will justify it philosophically, but they don't actually kind of believe it on a personal level because they don't really examine it too closely or think it. So they'll say like, yes,
but they hold it.
Get that. I'll be back in 1 second. Hold on.
Oh God, everybody's running away.
Yeah, I gotta run
from you, Ocean. Not unlike
but you know what I'm talking about, right, sir? It's like
I do know what you're talking about. It's like how it's the same thing as it's like when somebody says that, I don't think that you're less of a person, but like genetically you are a lesser, is something that somebody might hold. It's the same idea of saying, like, I don't think that you're a horrible person, but you do deserve to burn in hell. There's like a kind of a disconnect there where it's like, do you not realize how the latter entails the former?
Yeah. And like, I don't know. It's weird because there's a generalization that's being made as a necessary aspect of the belief in Christianity. And it is kind of like, I think it's akin to a sort of racism because it's othering. And like it's not racism, obviously. It's the same. It's the same kind of thing. And it definitely exacerbates the us versus them sort of approach that they have, where it's like, well, and there's a, like, I've had this conversation with Christians before briefly, where it's like, well, they believe that everybody should burn in hell, but there's some people that are going to be redeemed through Christ. I think that's almost worse. Like
that's like saying that you're born. It's the Hitchens actually had a good quote on this. The whole "you're born sick but commanded to get better" type of deal. I think that holds true here. I don't hold to everything Hitchens says. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I've probably said on my channel that go against some of the things that Hitchens and Dawkins and other prolific speakers have said. But that is one of the things that he said that I agree with wholeheartedly, is that the idea of a doctrine that says that you're born sick and commanded to be better, I find it repugnant. But there are definitely some Christians that don't hold to it.
Right. But it's like any Christian that believes in like the hellfire kind of thing. It's like, oh, we just got a $20 super chat, man.
Yep.
But Christians that believe in like the hellfire thing, I see it as being a supporter of a spiritual holocaust of sorts. Like if we sit down and we consider the soul and the Christian view of it, and that being a real thing, that what they think is going to happen and what they believe is good that will happen to non-believers, to their souls at the end of time, or upon their death, or however it is they believe it's going to happen, that they're going to be like destroyed and burned and all that. That's just like they believe that, and they believe that's a good thing. It's so surreal to me. So even as a Christian, I found it incredibly difficult to square a belief in hell as being like a justified thing. And I think that hell might be like one of the contributing factors to my leaving Christianity, that I just couldn't get on board with it.
I didn't find it as a horrible thing when I was a Christian, but I was also, in a fundamental young earth creation type of Christianity that was just like, here you go. Here's all these horrible things. And by the way, they're good. Because I can look back at some of the things I used to justify, and I was like, I can't square those. Also, I do want to go ahead and say the $20 super chat from Craig Lee, since we do voice all of those here. Says, I'm not good with Discord yet. I was worked 16 hours a day and raised money for Teen Challenge. We lived on a farm called God's Mountain, and Sarah's hit me up at these. Love y'all, believer for 35 years. Cool. And I've already sent you a message on Twitter so that we can go ahead and get that conversation set up, since we can't really do the pre-interview over Discord, but Sweet. I will have that set up.
Yeah, we can do like a conversation over Google Hangouts or something.
Yep. That's probably the most efficient way to do that.
Do you think you were just like numb to the idea about hell, the damnation, all that crap, or was it
not numb to it? More just felt that it was justified. It's
right.
It's one of those things that if I had a friend and they were like even one of my roommates who's an atheist, he knew me when I was a Christian. So when he found out that I had become an atheist, he was like, "That's really weird. You used to try to convert me." It just one of those things that it was just kind of an imperative to me, like, this is a thing that's going to happen to you. I'm supposed to save you. So it felt justified that there was a horrible thing that would happen because there was an opportunity to be saved. And the way it was always given to me was, it's so easy. Just believe, and as if that's a choice, just believe and accept, and then you're saved. Like, that's all you have to do. It's like saying tossing a nickel into a fountain will save your life. Well, most people can at least find a nickel somewhere and toss it into a fountain. It's not hard. So to me, it was like, yeah, there's this horrible thing, but it's so easy to get out of it. Why is it that bad? Now with looking back on it, I'm like, the mere fact that the horrible thing is there. Yeah, the mere fact that the horrible thing is there is the actual issue.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think that has...
I just think if it was something that defined hell that wasn't like a belief status, I could get more on board with it. Like if it was a punishment for certain,
choose.
Right, or something that like not necessarily can actually choose, but so like if you're living like a reprehensible life of a certain standard or something like that, rather than just like a belief standard, because you can have two people that are exactly the same person, but one of them goes to heaven and one goes to hell on the basis of a belief status. And when somebody like believes something like that, it does irk me the wrong way. You know what I mean?
And that's fair. But I do think that if it's one of those things that doesn't, like, if it doesn't ever factor into a conversation, then it's not an inhibitor on people becoming friends. But it is one of those food for thought type scenarios.
I think the only reason why we hold that kind of opinion about it is because of how damn ubiquitous it is, though. Like most people in America are Christians. Most people in the South, even more so, are Christians. So, if we hold a standard of, no, I'm not going to associate with anybody that believes that non-Christians should burn in hell,
you outgroup yourself to the point where you can't communicate with people.
You ostracize yourself as a human from society by holding a moral standard that I don't think is unreasonable. So, I don't know, man. It's a pretty messy thing.
Well, I always thought that I guess it's different with people who were raised Christian to total. That's why I was saying there's a difference between what people philosophically believe as opposed to what they actually like really internally believe. Because most people, I would say, think when they think of hell, they may technically believe that all non-believers go there, but they kind of intuitively think that it's only reserved for the truly bad, for like the Heinrich Himmlers and the people who, even then, it's sometimes become hard to imagine how somebody could potentially deserve it. But for the people who were really like evil, as opposed to, just non-believers.
I can't verify that Christians think that, though, when the only thing that they tell me is the standard is that it's on the basis of belief. Like, I agree with you that I think that a lot of people are intuitively of that position, that hell is a place for bad people.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people express when they talk about people going there. But the fact is that, like, you can have somebody who's a perfectly well-meaning person that's, happens to be Hindu or Muslim or pagan or whatever, and that person will wind up burning for all eternity,
did you just
not
say
because
that
of
there
anything
are
they did.
well-meaning pagans? I don't
Oh,
really believe that.
I'm not. This is purely hypothetical. Let's be fair, but fucking pagans, right? But that's. I think that's an issue.
Right, but what I'm saying, I don't know. There's a lot of people who will try to justify that because they kind of feel like that's what they're supposed to do. It depends on what type of conversation you're having with them. But if it's just them, do they honestly deeply believe that, like, whatever, someone like Sirius the Skeptic deserves to burn for eternity just by virtue of the fact that he doesn't believe?
To be fair,
they base it
they're
on,
probably right when it comes to me.
Well, yeah, but I meant, like, I was trying to think of someone less evil, and I couldn't. I mean, more evil. I was trying to think of, like, a harmless atheist, and you're the first name that popped into my mind. I was like, wait a minute. First name that popped in my mind, Sirius. Didn't mean to imply that you're not totally evil, because we kind of know that you are, and I don't want to disrespect you by saying that you're not.
I only turned my camera off so that I can easily eat babies without you guys getting upset. So
without us seeing.
Did your fetus soup come in on Grubhub?
Yes, it did.
Good, cool.
Tastes like veal.
He's not on camera a lot, by the way, Ocean.
That's because he's eating a lot of fetus soup.
Yeah, I know that. I'm very well aware of that.
I hide behind the cartoon avatar so often, not because it's easy and it's funny, but because I'm actually eating a lot of fetus soup. That's
okay,
going to be
we run that joke into the ground.
It's going to be a soundbite that's taken now.
I heard that Sarah said.
There's a lot of good sound bites in this conversation.
But seriously, you were a Christian. One of the things that I think was brought up was that there were a lot of people who were telling you atheists were evil, right? Or bad, or, these are terrible human beings. Or was that brought up a lot in your church and your...
Oh, yes. Especially considering that, like, I was raised on books like the Left Behind series. And then the Left Behind series, the atheists are pretty much the bad guys. Like, I don't think there's really any two ways about it. There's, like, atheists are either neutral or the bad guys in that, except for, like, maybe one instance where somebody needed to buy food and an atheist helped out. But for the most part, it's just kind of like the narrative of that story. Was raised on that, was raised on a lot of other Christian literature that just paid, like Pilgrim's Progress, for instance. I don't know if you've ever read it before.
Pilgrim's Progress? I thought that was like a famous, isn't that like a famous piece of literature from like 1700s or 1600s?
Yeah, we had to read that at like age 5.
Really?
That's Pensacola Christian Academy for you.
Wow.
We were reading, like, because they wanted us to be able to read the Bible cover to cover by like age 6. And we were reading out of the King James Bible. So some of the verbiage in there is a little more myopic than something like, say, Stuart Little, which was something else we needed to be able to read at age 5. So something like Pilgrim's Progress is something that I grew up on as a child because that's what we were told to read. But in the narrative of Pilgrim's Progress, one of the most devious people in that story is the worldly wise men. They're one of the things that, and they're one of the people that can't get across the ocean to get into the kingdom of heaven at the end there. But they're one of the people that constantly meets the main protagonist.
All right.
God damn it. But they're one of the people who constantly gets in the way of the protagonist and tries to tell them, you don't have to do all this. You don't have to do all this.
Because there's no God? Is that they're an atheist? That's
what the worldly wise man is they're an atheist.
Okay. Interesting.
So a lot of the literature that I was reading growing up pretty much explicitly othered atheists. And then obviously if you were an atheist, you weren't allowed to go to school in the school that I was in because it was a Christian school. There was not a prayer time where, because you know how in churches sometimes there's the prayer time where if you're not converted, you can go ahead and go up to the front and you can convert or rededicate your life or whatever you need to do. That's not a thing that happened in school because it was accepted that you already were.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, it was definitely one of the things that I was taught.
So when you first met atheists online, or you didn't meet them in person though, you started watching like YouTube videos or something?
I didn't meet atheists first. I actually met pagans first.
Oh, weird. Like you met Ocean?
Chill. No, he didn't meet me.
No, this was when I was like...
You met Opinions? You met Ocean's like...
I met Cyrus after he'd already been corrupted by the atheist god.
The atheist god who's really shy, so he wants atheists to think he doesn't exist.
Correct.
Yes. Divine hiddenness. He's actually just a freaking lolly going, no, don't see me, senpai. That's all the atheist god is. But no, back when I was in middle school, I had just gotten into public education because I had private Christian education up to that point. I met people for what I knew. Everybody around me was Christian anyway. I mean, it was in the South, so seeing somebody who's an atheist was not something that I found until high school. But in middle school, I started playing World of Warcraft, and there were two guilds that I was in predominantly during that time. One of them was just a standard guild. That's what we used for raiding. But the other guild was a smaller one that I was an officer in. They basically just used the experience that I had from my other guild in order to make the guild that we were in better. But the leader was a girl named Crystal, and she was pagan. And so when this was like back when voice comms was Ventrilo and TeamSpeak, and that was it, which are names that some PC gamers nowadays might not even know of anymore because they're just not really used.
Good old TeamSpeak.
I do miss TeamSpeak a little bit, but I also really prefer Discord. It's so much better.
Discord is like the best of TeamSpeak with IRC.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I used to do IRC chats as well. So yeah, Discord is a nice, humble, homey place for me. But back in the days of Ventrilo and TeamSpeak, when the only real option for having conversation with people was in a public channel, we exchanged phone numbers. And we talked, and this person was living, way up north, so there was no threat of like accidentally meeting this random person on the internet. This was back in the time where everybody was constantly told that when you go into the AOL chat rooms, don't meet anybody from them because they're going to kill you, which could sometimes is still the case.
They're going to kill you.
The idea of me and Ocean going to meet at Waffle House would have been one of those things that you just didn't do because he could have killed me or I could have killed him.
Well, I guarantee you, one of you, actually both of you, probably were planning on killing the other one, but you just kind of like met and got over it. So it could have been either you killed the other one because you were both probably planning it. This is my time to be a murderer on the internet.
I feel called out.
No, you're not. You're not called out. You're called in. You've been called into this hangout. But so my first real interaction with somebody who wasn't a Christian was her, and her husband was, if memory serves, was the same way. I can't remember. They're not
those weird pagans.
One of those weird pagans. But then when I got to high school, I met people who were Wiccan, atheist, pretty much everywhere, and I just kind of started to slowly stop trying to be the proselytizing person that tried to convert everybody.
Public high school.
Yes, public high school.
Okay.
Because as I met these people who were different than what I thought, because to me a Wiccan was somebody who did evil, witchcrafty things, and then it was like, no, I just think spells are neat, and I mean, if they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. That's cool. And then I was just like, oh, there's functionally no difference between you and a normal human being. Oh, okay, well, crap. I even met a girl when I was in middle school who believed in the Egyptian pantheon of gods. She would always have an ankh available at any point. I wish I could meet her again to talk to her about that now that it's, a central theme of my channel. So I met these different people, but the atheists were probably the last people that I met. So yeah, apparently I got corrupted after meeting all these people. So Ocean, you wouldn't have been able to save me from the evil atheist god.
Right, but the people you were met...
That doesn't change the fact that the atheist god still had you in his clutches by the time we met.
And then suddenly the air was incredibly dead, like the atheist god. I don't know if that was as funny as you're laughing at it for, but you know what? I'm okay with it.
I thought it was. I don't know. I'm probably. I find that
Now,
funny.
now,
Anyway,
we need to get a new movie called Atheist God's Not Dead.
atheist gods. So wait, if
Is there
atheist
such
god
a
is
thing as an atheist movie? Like an atheist? There isn't, is there?
oh they exist.
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh
No,
yeah,
I mean like an atheist movie,
movies are.
like trying to get people to become atheists, like
Dude,
put out by like the.
Have you not seen The Big Lebowski?
Oh yeah, Dudism.
That is an atheist movie.
Is it?
There's even a whole religion structured
thought he
around
had-
it now.
It's definitely a thing. I meant that as a half joke, but
But
yeah,
then I
it's
remembered that
definitely-
Dudism is actually a religion now.
There's also like I want to say that there's some atheist films out there. Like there's a lot like nihilism and kind of like when you get like into hard like hopelessness filmmaking, especially after World War One and briefly, well, not necessarily after World War Two. World War Two's after World War Two's where you get into like golden age shit. But in between World War One and World War Two, there's a lot of like Dadaism and darkness inspiration in filmmaking. A lot of it, there's a lot of atheist themes to it because atheism in the like beginning of the 20th century, end of the 19th century, was seen as a very intellectual position. And films being a intellectual flexing in art house films, especially when you get into like Italian filmmaking after World War II, after World War One, a little bit of French filmmaking after World War One,
German expressionism.
Yeah, and that to a lesser extent I would say to a lesser extent that definitely involves nihilism, doesn't it? Like yeah, European filmmaking in general at that point, like post World War One, definitely has a lot of like atheist undertones to it. So there's a lot of like classic films that built the foundation of filmmaking in general that do have some heavy atheistic themes to it. That being said,
there's stuff like The Seventh Seal. You probably saw The Seventh Seal, right? The Bergman
would
flick.
you consider that an atheist film? What would you think?
It's hard
got
to
a lot
say.
of those rules to it. Like, the things that I'm saying are there.
It's kind of about his search for God, but it's from the position of the silence of God, the hiddenness of God. I'm looking for God. So I don't know. It can be interpreted a couple different ways.
He doesn't really find God at the end, does he? He dies and is led away by death or something, isn't he? Am I wrong there?
Like chess with death, and
I know it's about a chess game with death, and there's a lot of like beautiful women in that movie.
Did you ever see Waiting for Godot, the play?
I did not.
Okay, because it's considered like an atheist play, but it's kind of a Christian play. It's hard to, I'm not sure if I would call it atheist.
The chat is screaming the Golden Compass right now, which I haven't seen, so that's the reason why I didn't think about it. But I know of it being an atheist thing. So
I also remember there being I remember there being a lot of controversy saying that like a real Christian would never go watch the Golden Compass. The main reason I remember that is because there's an armored bear in the Golden Compass, and there's a heavily Christian producer, or not producer, but one of the champion designers in League of Legends was a heavy Christian, and he said that there will never be an armored bear in League of Legends because he hated the Golden Compass so much. His name was Zilius, and so as a result, one of the other designers created a character who was an armored bear just to spite him, brought it into the game, and gave him a bunch of abilities that made the character named after the other producer inherently worse when he was in a match with the armored bear. Just because he was shitting on him.
Looking up The Seventh Seal. It's a really good movie. I saw it in a theater setting, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah, it's considered a classic. It's not actually his best film, but it's up there.
I'm looking at the end of just went to Wikipedia to look at the plot again because it's like a the way that the movie ends, it's not really like, it doesn't seem really clear that he finds God. Like it's more that he's come to terms with his death.
Right. Well, I haven't spent so long. I saw it in college, so it's 34 years ago or so, or 30 years ago. He's playing chess with death, and it's the theme is that it's the Black Plague, and the theme is the silence of God. But I forget if it's resolved in favor of God exists or in favor of the silence of God.
The ending of the movie, he seems to pray to God, but he's led away by death, and the final scene is the dance of the macabre.
Right, and the implication is there was no answer to his prayer, that he died. So,
we do have another super chat that said, I met this. It's from Craig Lee again, saying that he met this hot chick in college and she was a witch and they almost converted.
That's kind of hot.
They? That's kind of...
That's the best apologetic I've ever heard. Argumentum ad hot chick.
When it comes to paganism, there's sexiness.
But yeah, there was probably a strain of intellectual atheist films from like art house flicks from like the 30s and 40s. I'm sure I could think of some off the top of my head.
When you go back to the like 20s and early 30s, you have a lot of that kind of stuff because it's people dealing with World War I through film, especially in European films. And I think that World War I, this is me shooting from the hip, but I think that World War I might be a big contributing factor to the atheism of Europe.
Absolutely, because
just of the ransacking, and World War II shortly after that just like confirmed a lot of it. It's just like,
right, but World War I,
after World War I, everybody's like, there's no God. Maybe there's a God, but there's no God if he's going to let that happen. And then World War II happened, and I was like, there's definitely no God.
There's definitely not a God in a world where Stephen Molyneux exists.
Yeah, that's right. YouTube, if anything will convert me to atheism, it's just that YouTube has personalities on it. The fact that Sargon of Akkad and Stephen Molyneux have channels
that perform well.
Yeah,
that's my biggest issue.
There's that. That's just like bonus on top of it for me. But that's
if they were, would you care if they were like 5 and 6 sub channels? Would you care if they were Nephilim free channels?
Actually, that would probably confirm my belief in God. You're okay. That's fine. Because that's okay. Fine. Okay. Now that
I've
trying to think of more atheist movies. Now that we're on that kind of thing,
there's a bunch from Boonwell. Those are probably atheists. I don't remember offhand, but like in Shin, Andalou, and I'm trying to think. I know there's got to be some back there.
What movie convinced you to leave Christianity, Cyrus?
What movie convinced me to leave Christianity?
Jaws.
Well, you see, it was this lovely movie called Science Falsely So Called.
That brought you to Christianity, I thought.
There's a God has to exist in a world where that movie is so thoroughly entertaining and how bad it is.
It's kind of like The Room of Christian films.
The Room is the best. Are you dissing The Room, or you're saying it's so great?
I'm saying The Room.
Lisa, you're tearing me apart, Lisa.
The Room is you know damn well that The Room is awesome because of how shitty it is. Like it's just
The Room is but it's so really bad, brilliant.
But it's wonderful. It's a wonderfully bad film.
It's the Wheel of
free
Suck
on YouTube, by the way.
It's the Wheel of Suck concept. Something.
That's how a friend of mine showed it to me. She was like, "All right, I have to get you to watch The Room." I'm like, "I don't care. I don't want to watch this. It's a bad movie. It's bad." She's like, "No, you'll enjoy it. We're gonna watch it right now." I'm like, "Okay, fine." And I was screaming at it, and she was laughing hysterically as I was yelling at it. This stupid fucking movie with everybody doing it. It's just like, because It's my industry, man. And I'm seeing all this crap happen, and I was just like, what is this scene? My favorite scene in that movie is when he goes in and talks and is like, he buys flowers and then says goodbye to the dog and leaves. That's just such a horribly constructed scene. It's absolutely terribly constructed scene, but it's wonderful every single time I fucking watch it. Good, yeah. Hi, doggy.
Yeah, that's a class. Also, I did not hit her. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. That's
Hi, Mark.
Took like 200 takes. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, to the topic. We should probably get back to the topic.
Should
Sir,
we?
do you have anything to say about the topic?
Well, it's an after show, so there's not exactly a formal topic. It just happens to be an after show about what happened.
We're all drinking wine here. Let's go to the. Let me look around in the chat. Are they talking about movies now? Has this turned into a film nerd?
Nope.
Show. What are they fucking talking about in there?
Apparently, a little bit about Stephen Molyneux since I brought him up.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I should totally just take a bunch of his tweets and do a Master Apologist episode, but it's just about Stephen Molyneux.
I mean, if you did, you'd get on libertarian Twitter's radar.
Neat.
Or libtube, liberalistism, I don't know, whatever the fuck it is, like the whole. I don't have any values, but I totally support free speech. Political position.
Just like, yeah,
I like Lockean ideals, but I abandoned the whole foundation of it. Position of YouTube, you know, that whole like circle.
You know what I love? I love the subset of YouTube that's like, oh, I'm a huge fan of free speech. You should totally stop criticizing this person because free speech. You're just like, wait, hold on a minute. Do you not understand that like free speech is a two-way street? That's how this works. Like,
well, I thought it was interesting because when Sargon did the whole like liberalism thing, right? Because I was like, oh, okay, you're starting a movement, and then what are the parameters of this movement? And he was like, free speech, and that was pretty much it.
It's like, but you've already got that.
But wait, okay. But then, like, Count Dankula got fined over a joke. And it's just like, okay, that's dumb. But I'm looking around in America, like, you know, our free speech laws are pretty fucking sound. So what's going on here? Like the
I will have to say,
I don't know. But it's like the whole foundation of it was just like, okay, this is essentially a pointless and like almost ubiquitous position to hold, and it's dumb. And then it becomes difficult to criticize, except that the criticism is that it's not enough of a position. It's just like, you know, okay, I hold Lockean ideals, but I don't agree with the foundations of John Locke. Okay.
Then you don't have Lockean ideals.
Right. And, you know, it's you can agree with Locke's conclusions without believing in God, but it's hard to justify, like, it's hard to say that you're a Lockean when you don't agree with him on the foundational subjects. I think that he bases everything on, because he bases everything on a belief in God. So
presuppose the left shoe.
Sure. I'm going to ground human rights in my left shoe.
Lockean ideals and human rights ground in left shoeism. But not the right shoeism, because that's the same.
You can get Lockean like stuff out of like secular humanism, but at that point, just say you're a secular humanist. You don't say you're fucking Lockean. Like, that doesn't. That actually, if you're a secular humanist, you got to be on board with like trans rights and shit. And
that sounds like that actually could be its own hammered out episode. Not even gonna lie.
Right, but then we'd have to talk about politics.
I don't want to talk about that because Orange Man bad.
Orange Man bad.
Hold on a second. There's so many good like NPC memes on that kind of attitude.
There really is. At first, I kind of found the entire thing like a little offensive, and then I just kind of went, "This is just one big joke. This is great."
I enjoy it. The NPC thing. But I'm also like, I think that it's easier for me to enjoy it because I try to justify all my positions.
So
Like
the idea of
anything
being
that I'm willing to defend, I'm willing to get down to the brass tacks of like philosophically justifying it from a structural perspective. When I'll justify it through utilitarianism or something like that. And a lot of people don't do that. So when I see the NPC meme of just like, there's one on communism where it was like communism is bad, and then another person says why, and then the NPC just gets the mad face.
And like what's worse though is that a lot of times it's with really easy positions to justify. Like you can justify being against communism. It's not hard.
Right. Of course you can.
It's not hard at all. You can justify not liking a particular political figure. That's not hard. You just find the things you disagree with them, and then suddenly you've magically justified your position.
You can even reverse engineer it and just be like, all right, I have this conclusion. What's the justification that people usually go with? And then, all right, fine. I'll just hold that. Like that's the lazy way of doing it. And you could do that. But like people, the reason why the NPC thing is so damn effective is because a lot of people don't do that.
And so would an NPC atheist say Crown of Thorns man bad?
God bad. I think it's just Sky Daddy bad.
Sky Daddy man bad.
Sky Man bad. I think that's the one. That's actually one that I saw. It was like Sky Man bad. I saw that today, and I said that's funny. Okay, hold on a second. Let's see if I can find it.
So wait a minute. You know what sucks about that though? Is that you can say Banana Man bad, and it works for both Christians and atheists. Because the Christians could be talking about T.J. Kirk, and the atheists would be talking about Ray Comfort. They're both the Banana Man.
Oh, T.J. Kirk, I forgot all about that. I forgot about that banana incident, that banana in the tailpipe incident. Was that a rumor or was that an actual...
No, there was a video.
There was a video of that.
That's the reason why it got so ubiquitous, was because there was a video.
On YouTube? No.
It was like Live Leak or some shit.
Yeah. It's just kind of one of those things that it's like, I want to do that meme now, and then just have like Banana Man bad, and then the Christian and atheist NPCs are
just let them fight over it,
going at each other because they think they mean the other guy.
Which one is going to use this meme more? My bet is the Christians will use it, but because like Tradcaf Twitter is pretty good at the NPC meme.
Shanna Vermillion asked in the chat, what's the Banana Man? So tiny history tangent. One of Ray
there's this guy named Ray Comfort.
Yeah, one of Ray Comfort's most famous videos is called the
Atheist's Worst Nightmare.
Yeah, Atheist's Worst Nightmare. And the way he justifies it is, an atheist's worst nightmare is any proof of intelligent design. Now, if you look at a well-made banana, it has 3 ridges in the front, 2 ridges in the back, perfect with the human hand. That is designed. And the best part about it is that bananas are actually designed. We genetically clone them. So it's like, yes, Ray, bananas are designed. You're right. Good job. But then afterwards, after that became so ubiquitous to Ray Comfort, T.J. Kirk was like, this is your proof of God, and took a freaking banana and started shoving it up his butt in a video. And that became a very memeable thing for T.J. Kirk, the amazing atheist. So now when Christians say the Banana Man, it's T.J. Kirk, but if atheists say the Banana Man, it's usually Ray Comfort.
Right.
And there's your interesting banana history fact of the day.
Bananas are very influential over YouTube.
Yes.
I didn't realize that the T.J. Kirk was related to the... That's what sparked the banana in the tailpipe incident? Is that what you're saying? Was that I sort of missed the history? He
was doing a performance for a dominatrix.
Oh, but it wasn't related to the Ray Comfort thing.
No,
at all. Okay,
no. But because it just happened to be T.J. Kirk.
The best thing about that whole incident was how T.J. Kirk addressed it, because he when it was leaked and it was everywhere for a little while, and T.J. Kirk's next video was him kind of explaining what happened while eating a banana. That was like the best, ballsiest way to address that whole controversy.
I think I saw that actually.
He's just like casually eating a banana, and it's just like, all right.
He's like, so heard any good rumors lately?
Nobody can laugh at him about it anymore because he's sitting there consuming a banana while talking about it casually. Just like, yeah, I feel no shame.
Well, he also had his character do that entire bit on a Dark Matters video as well. When God,
I'm not familiar with that.
There's a video where like God confronts the amazing atheist, and he's just like sitting there arguing with God. He's like, "Okay, I get it. A person shoves a banana up their butt one time, and it's all they're ever known about anymore. For I get it, God."
That's pretty funny.
And then he got in Dark Matters. God character just ends up sending TJ to hell.
After I can see God.
That was actually pretty witty. He thought that up.
It's for a hand. It's for a hand, TJ.
Just for a hand. That's like the Pee Wee Herman thing. Are you guys? Is that before your time? The controversy.
I remember that. I know about the Pee Wee Herman thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when he was like, he was at some award show, and he goes, "So, heard any good jokes lately?" And the whole place erupted. It's like, yeah, we did. As a matter of fact, about you.
Oh my God, Ocean. It's freaking. I'm gonna have to put that up on the screen for the audience. I don't know if the audience is familiar with the ideal GF meme. In fact, I'm assuming that you are at least familiar with it since you linked that to me.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now, ideal GF is hilarious, but let's go to. I also thought it was interesting when freaking what's his face, completely off topic. When what's his face brought up James White on Modern Day Debates channel, and just like Dr.
Interesting.
Dr. James White.
I used James White for some research into a debate one time because I wanted to get positions. I wanted to find out what the strongest attacks on open theism were. So I found a debate where James White goes after an open theist, and I was like, "Damn, son!" I was like sitting there taking notes, like, yep, this is great. Okay, good stuff. Cool. I'm gonna win this debate now. And I used like a couple of his points against the open theist because he's a Calvinist. He's not an open theist, and he was debating an open theist and crushing. And it's like, damn, dude.
I just think it's funny.
What was your interest in that? You were just interested in the topic, or you were?
I was scheduled for a debate with a street preacher named John Singleton. On
yeah. That's the guy he's on James's show a couple times.
Yeah, it was a modern day debate, and I went on there, and it was my first appearance on that channel, and it was me versus him on open theism and whether or not, like, how true it was and stuff like that. And I think that John Singleton.
I'm curious why you took a position in it, though. Did you actually just? Well, what was your position in it? Because he believes in it, right?
Yeah. My position was that it's good, but and it's consistent with Christianity, or it's consistent with the Bible, but it's not great for a Christian. And so my strategy was to agree with him on the biblical interpretation and then go into philosophy and show how it's actually a polytheist belief. And,
I got you.
I think I did well in doing that. He admitted that I did very well in that debate.
That you won. You won the debate. Did you say you won?
He says
I win tonight. I won, didn't I?
He said that he thinks that I did better than him. So
yeah, you won.
If you want to say that I won, I don't want to I'm more of a let the audience decide when it comes to my debates, because I think that, especially with stuff like the Eric Murphy debate that's on my channel, I think that if you're an atheist and you're watching that video, Eric Murphy did really well. I think Eric
Murphy, is that the guy from
Talk Heathen? Yeah.
Oh,
but
cool.
I think that when it comes to somebody being able to stand up to Eric Murphy and do well as a theist, I think that I won. So, I think that that's one where if you watch it, it depends on your predilections. And I'm not going to sit there and claim victory. What I will say, though, is that I think that when it comes to debating atheist personalities like that, I'm better than a lot of theists. and I can hold my own better than a lot of theists.
That's why it's upsetting. That's why it's so upsetting that when we did the debate between me, you, and Mike Winger, they didn't have any questions that pitted me and you against each other.
Well, what question could they fucking ask?
I don't know. I'm curious.
I think that we disagree when it comes to like base epistemology positions as far as conclusions go, but we think each other's arguments are fine, if I recall correctly. Is that accurate?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Well, it's hard to actually like
get us to disagree. Yeah.
It's like you can get us to disagree on some things, but when it comes to theology, it's like, okay, kind of on the same page on a lot of this stuff.
And even when it comes to like social policies and stuff like that, we're pretty much on the same page. Orange man bad, right?
Orange man very bad.
Yeah.
Orange man very bad.
Orange man PC, therefore orange man bad.
I actually don't understand. I got to watch the debate on open theism because I don't understand how he's reconciling the position with actual Christianity. But I don't know enough about it to. So like there's parts of Christianity that he's got to completely bleep out of, right? Pretend aren't part of Christianity.
I challenge him a little bit on that, but I also view that, like, as far as his debate with me, he wanted to debate me on open theism because I think his motivation for that was it's the strongest position. It's the strongest position for him. Like, it's his game. Like, he knows that position in and out. The problem with that being your game and going against somebody who's a non-Christian with it is that the position is like heavily dependent on a specific kind of biblical interpretation. And me being somebody, I don't care necessarily about the Bible. So when I'm debating as far as like truth claims and theology, I don't think the Bible is peripheral to me. It's like it's something that's interesting, and you might be able to say that it matters for personal theology, but when you're getting into truth claims, it's not a basis that I can consider.
It's like
we're getting more into like logical stuff. So
it's like if you've got two professional fighting game players, and one person, like, they both are masters at their character. It just so happens that one of the people who mastered their character has mastered a character that's invariably worse than the other one. It doesn't matter that you're a master of that
it's
character.
Not that it's worse. It's like it's that he's mastered something that's a subset of what I'm good at. And when you can't even get into the subset, like I started inside the subset and agreed with him and everything, and then I left it. And that's what made it difficult for him, because I made it so that I agree with him within his territory, but once I was outside of his territory, I demonstrated something that was hard for him to combat. And that was the strategy that I just kind of went with. And so with like open theism, his arguments, I think he would do way better in an open theism debate with another Christian. Like if he went against another Christian, he'd be really good.
Because the Christian is going to say, well, the Bible says X, therefore open theism false. And he's going to say, well, the Bible says X here, so how do you reconcile that? And the Christian probably hasn't thought it through. And, you know,
he's got a really good objection that makes me think.
What
is, and I actually want to get your opinion on this, because there's a prophecy that he uses, Old Testament. It's about Nineveh, I believe the story of Jonah, where it's talking about God prophesies that Nineveh will be destroyed without any conditions. It's not a conditional prophecy. It's in which, you know, the idea of God, an all-knowing, predestinate God making a conditional prophecy is weird anyway, but it's a prophecy that Nineveh will be destroyed. Then there's apparently a righteousness revolution of some kind in Nineveh, and God goes, okay,
because of Jonah's preaching, right?
Right. So then, therefore, I will not destroy. Right. So how can God either, if God knows the future in a Calvinist set, right? God knows the future, and free will is only a function of like us kind of going according to the motions, right. Then God has to be a liar with the first prophecy to say Nineveh will be destroyed. He had to lie to Jonah. If you hold that there's a free will perspective, and God still knows what the future is or something like that, then he still had to lie with the first prophecy. But that story only works if God doesn't know the future and it is encapsulated in time along with us and can be surprised by our actions.
Right.
That's the only way you can make God not a liar. So
that's the open theism position that
right.
that God doesn't know the future. But then how do they account for prophecies in general? How is God prophesying at all if he doesn't know the future? And the Bible says
the idea is that
he knows the end from the beginning. What is, I mean, I should be asking John this, but I was going to have him on my channel because I'm really curious as to how he deals with some of those things, because they're really obvious, you know.
I'm going to send him a message real quick.
In the beginning, well, that's sort of, and open theism ain't true, you know, according to the Bible.
Right.
I don't know.
I think that the way that he works it is that God is still very much like he's in control of the universe, so he can make a guiding plan, but he still has to adapt to what humans do, because humans without humans being able to be agents and making a choice, then we're just going along with emotions, and that makes the universe fairly meaningless. The one thing that I will say about open theism is that it provides a better argument for meaningfulness within Christianity. I think that with the Calvinist interpretation, God winds up being a moral monster, or with anything where God knows the future. There's moral monster arguments for God become way stronger. And I think that if you go hard Calvinism, the only entity that should be going to hell is God, because he's the one that's responsible for all the sins. And if anybody else is going to hell, then the one who's responsible for the sins is not being punished. And I can't consider that perfect justice.
Right. But the open theism, it almost makes sense. And I understand why it would be attractive to people. But it's actually possible for God to know the future. This is really complicated, but it's possible for God to know the future and a human to have complete free will within the future. But it becomes a deviation from God's perfect will. Only one person fulfilled God's perfect will on earth, and that's Jesus, because he lived a life without sin. The rest of us fall short of the glory of God. We fall short of what God wanted for us. So he had a preordained goal, but we made choices that we didn't receive the fullness of everything God had for us.
That means that we can surprise God. Now you're open theist. Like
we can't surprise him. You're within that framework. It doesn't surprise God. He knows what you're going to do, but you have the freedom within the framework. He's not.
That's not freedom.
He's not connected to it. It's like how I've tried to explain it. It's just really hard to explain.
That's passing the buck. That's not actually free will, I don't think. Because
it is. I'll explain it.
Because if God knows what you're going to do, then there's two properties that screw this up. God knowing what you're going to do and being the first cause. Because if God is the first cause and knows the future, then you have to say that there's reasons why people do things. And if there's reasons why people do things, then our actions are causally related to other elements of the universe, which means that all of our actions, everything that we've done that God ascribes responsibility to us about, is actually related to the first cause. Who's the first cause? God. So all of our actions are the result of the first cause. At that point,
right,
God is the one who's responsible for every action, because the buck ends with him. And if he knows the future, then he's the one who bears responsibility. That means that all sins fall upon him, and God needs to be the one that goes to hell, not the humans.
Well, how I'm explaining it, let's say that there is a chess game. God is apart from the chess game. He knows how those pieces are going to move from beginning, middle to end, from the entire way the chess game is going to be played out. He's not causing anybody to do anything. He has preordained goals for every single piece, but those pieces in their free will deviate from the preordained arrival place. So he then has to, using their free will, take that into account. God, this gets so hard to explain, but it actually makes sense. But it's really,
like, maybe I don't see how it does, because even with your example, if I preordain, if I preordain the chessboard, I put all the pieces on the board, and then they move according to the way that I designed them to. Then do I blame the pieces? I get mad at the pieces because God gets mad at His creation.
Them to. They deviate.
But you know what they're going to do, and you created it.
Right, but
and if you wanted them to do something else, you could create things differently.
The confusion is coming from knowing that somebody's having knowledge of what somebody is going to do doesn't mean you cause them to do it. Let's take Trump. You know,
it doesn't mean that it's not that he's caused it. Just as a quick example, does God know what you're going to do at 12:30 p.m. next Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. Then what are you going to do at 12:30 p.m. next Thursday?
Hold on a second. As a better example, does God know what you're going to do at 2:30 p.m. next Tuesday? The answer is yes, right? If God told you what you were going to do at 2:30 p.m. next Tuesday, could you do otherwise?
Of course. You have free will.
Then God
tells people to do now you violated God's sovereignty.
Yeah, God doesn't know then.
He tells Sears every single day. He says, Sears, put the baby down. Put the baby down. Sears goes, no, I'm going to eat it. Every single day, God pleads desperately with Sears, put the babies down. He doesn't listen. That's the whole of Christian theology. People do what they want, not what God, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's the whole prayer. The heaven is where God's will is done, irrespective of your free will. Earth, it's free will. So you're looking at a map of the human heart.
No, you have for one, even in psychology, there's an argument over whether free will even exists.
Yeah, I know. I'm not a determinist. I agree.
From what I understand, psychology actually sides with free will. Oddly enough, like there's what they consider to be an unexplained element of agency that doesn't seem to have a causal relation, but in some cases I mean, you can develop reasons for certain things, but that there does seem to be in the same conditions, agents do things that are different, even under the same conditions. So that increases the argument for an unexplained law of will, so to speak. But it's hard to philosophically grapple with because, you get into that dichotomy of, does the agent choose A over B? If there's a reason why the agent chooses A over B, then there's determinism. If there's no reason, then it's random. And Craig just left.
Yeah, that's weird.
And Craig back.
Seems like you had a bit of a connection issue there, Craig.
Also, Anchored Alliance, who's John, is interested in coming in here. He says he'll be home in like 5 minutes.
Sure. I mean, we're only going to
come in.
We're only going to be on here for the next like 20-ish minutes.
Okay.
But I mean, if he wants to be in, then that's fine. Doesn't bother me.
If we want to make the last 15 minutes of this an open theism debate, then I know John wants to come in. So
John is here.
I'm talking to him on Discord. He's in the live chat right now.
Oh, cool. Bring him on. Oh, wait. Did Sears say no?
No, Sarah said it's cool. Yeah. So if you want to talk to him, we can get him on. I'll send him a link just now.
Yeah, I want to ask him how that's reconciled. I want to have him on my show. Hey, Ocean, you were supposed to come on my channel at some point.
Yeah, we need to work that out. I was in the middle of producing a feature when you sent me that message and everything was going haywire. However, my life has calmed down a little bit now, so I've got a little bit of time. We should definitely do something soon. I could do something this week if you want to do something this week.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I could do something. Maybe I can't Thursday. It depends on if my wife is home.
Next week is also a possibility. We'll reconnect over Twitter. Let's not waste time making a schedule.
Yeah. Okay. I'll DM you.
Yeah. And I'll keep an eye out for it. But yeah, I sent the link to John, so he might pop in and we can have some Christian infighting on this channel.
That is assuming that I don't actually just go back in time and eat Craig as a baby.
And what?
Go back in time.
Kill me in the womb?
Go back in time. No, not kill you in the womb. No, you've got to be born first. The skull has to firm up.
Really? I think there's extra added maliciousness in your killing me, Stairs. I think that's mean. I think you should kill me in the womb. Then I don't have to even know.
Oh, so this just turned into an abortion debate.
I don't remember anything as a baby, so.
I mean, if this just became a pro-life versus pro-choice discussion, that's fine.
Oh gosh.
John's gonna walk into fucking hell over here, man. Like it's just gonna be a mess. Poor man. Let's see.
Also, I see that Notch is in the chat. I mean, we're going to be here for another 15, 20 minutes. Notch can totally hop in.
It's not just saying in the chat. It's just being a douche.
That's what he does best. But no, he had said earlier, I see that I get here and Cyrus is all like, yeah, fuck, we're going to finish up now.
Oh, no, we've got a little bit longer. We're waiting on another Christian to pop in. But yeah, so you've got some, like, there's a couple of things that I put forward that as far as like the responsibility. Do you agree with the responsibility argument that I made when it comes to Calvinism? Because you're holding, I think you're holding something that's different than Calvinism.
With hard Calvinism, yeah, that becomes a problem because with really hard Calvinism, from how I've heard them explain it, I have to hear them flesh it out. But for example, what's his face? Who's the famous precept guy?
Saitem?
Yeah. Okay, so he describes it as all sinners are dead on the bottom of the ocean floor, and God sovereignly comes in and chooses to save some people and not others.
Right.
And I think R.C. Apologist sort of explained it the same way, that we all deserve hell, and God, by sovereign grace, picks some people to pre-elect, and it sort of matches up with the scriptures, but it's only...
I can't describe that as perfect justice, though.
If
I don't think
that's
that's
the case, yeah, because if that's the case, then there's no way that all you need is one. Like, all you need is one person who's doomed to hell, and it's already, like, it cannot be justice at that point. All you need is one person.
Well, unless it's Hitler.
Yeah,
guys, we have John Singleton.
Oh my God,
he's in here.
Right.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Hey,
John.
So, John, I guess you heard a little bit of the conversation that was coming up because I sent you a link, and so
Ocean orchestrated this whole thing.
I did, producer. So, I think you heard. I used two arguments. One was yours and one is mine. I used I used two of your arguments. I used the justice argument, which is the hell thing. Can you hear me?
No, I'm here. We're good.
Cool.
No. I just had to turn on the light.
My justice objection to Calvinism, and then your Nineveh objection, as well as the aversion of the T-shirt objection that you use.
Oh, perfect. Those are all good arguments.
So I think those are the three strongest arguments for open theism, in my opinion. So if you want to,
I'd agree with you.
But Craig says that he's got some things that he doesn't think that he wants to see how you justify certain things. So Craig,
sure.
If you want to ask,
yeah, that sounds good.
Or unless you want to have like an opening thing that you want to say, John.
I guess the main thing I would say is that although I don't think like open theism is a salvation issue, I would honestly say that's good news for anyone who believes in like divine foreknowledge and free will, because it makes you wrong. Like there's no way to reconcile it. So it's a good thing it's not a salvation issue, because honestly, like I have had so many conversations in the last few months, and honestly, like there isn't like one good argument for that side yet. So I'd be interested to hear some of the.
I disagree with you on that, because I think we had a conversation where I made the objection to you that I think that either like you and the Calvinists are worshiping two fundamentally different gods, that from the Christian perspective, one of you is an idolater. Like,
that one was interesting. That was interesting. Yeah. No,
one of them is a what?
An idolater.
Oh, I see.
Like one of you is worshiping a different god. Like you're worshiping different gods. Like there's completely different ideas of God there. Like
I guess that would be like on the next layer of it. But I do think that it's a good issue to talk about. I definitely wouldn't discard it.
Right. And at that point, if one of you is an idolater, then it would become a salvation issue, I think. Or at least it could be arguably a salvation issue.
I think it could arguably be. And I think that'd be good to talk about on the next layer. I'm just kind of interested to hear, Craig, what are your main arguments? You wanted to know like how I reconciled something. So I'm down to hear it.
I actually don't have any arguments because I don't know the position that well yet. I was going to just ask you questions. And actually, I want you to come on my channel at some point in the next couple of weeks and flesh it out just spell it out for me so I understand it. if you want to do that, and tell me about your channel and what you do.
Sure.
So, okay, so am I understanding it correctly that God doesn't have full knowledge of events that have not transpired yet? So his knowledge of human events is limited? He's not omniscient?
No, he's not omniscient in the sense that you would think, because he doesn't know for sure the future free will decisions of man. Like, if God prophesies something will come to pass, and, you know, he wants to make it come to pass, he doesn't need to know the future for that. But he didn't know if Nineveh was going to repent or not. You know, he doesn't know the future free will decision, because when God gave man free will, he relinquished his ability to have divine foreknowledge of their decisions. Because free will means you can surprise God. There's no doubt about that. Otherwise, you know, God's pulling the strings. If God knows what you'll do 100% in any circumstance, then guess what? He's pushing your buttons when he wants you to do something. He'll say, oh, I did something, and, you know, you have the ability to respond, but he knew what you were going to do based on what he'd do. So he's just pushing your buttons and making you a robot, just like the Calvinist, except the Calvinist would, you know, I definitely think what they believe is a lot worse, but they are more upfront with the logical conclusions of their belief. That doesn't make Calvinism better, though, regardless.
So when the Bible says God knows the end from the beginning, what does that mean?
No, that's a power statement in Isaiah. That basically means that God is going to accomplish everything he wants to throughout a period of time. But there were certain things that Jesus said that made it to where that interpretation would fall flat. For example, Christ wanted to forego the crucifixion. It doesn't mean that he was like always going to avoid it, but he didn't want it to occur at that time. He asked 3 times for the cup to be passed from him. He also said when he was about to be arrested that he could call down 12 legions of angels and basically just make it to where he couldn't be arrested. And he wasn't saying, oh, I could do that, but the Father's not letting me do it. He said, I could do that. And I mean, Jesus could have offered himself as a free will sacrifice. He didn't need the Romans and the Jews to kill him. So people think that it had to go down in an exact certain little way in order for it to atone. But any way it happened, it would have atoned. So I think the main problem with divine foreknowledge people is the fact that they need everything like the Calvinist to fit into this little nice box. And if it doesn't, then it's wrong. And they basically sit in a room and create their own God. And they say, well, if God isn't the way I want him to be, then he's not God. And that's what most people say against open theism. But they're going to have a weird surprise, like a very rude awakening, when God's like, hey, I'm God, and that's not how I operate. So what do you think about that? And I don't know what people are going to say to that. It's going to be interesting.
For clarification to the audience, Cyrus and I, like, it's interesting to see like 2 Christians kind of discuss these kind of topics, but it's like obviously there's huge disagreements between Craig, between Jonathan, and between Cyrus, and between me. But it is interesting to kind of see like this conversation happen when 2 Christians disagree so fundamentally on foundational topics, like when it comes to like the nature of God, right?
Like I've got some contentions with the arguments on both sides, but I'm willing to just kind of sit back and let things happen, because I don't think I'm going to add anything to the conversation by throwing in my monkey wrench.
Right. So I guess go back to Craig. I know you've probably got some comments about what Jonathan just said.
So you just said, so the atonement Jesus could have laid himself down as a sacrifice at any time. Is that what you said? That he could have offered himself up in any way, shape, or form. It didn't go down the way it was preordained to go down. I'm not sure if I fully understand you yet, but go ahead.
He's arguing that it wouldn't have been preordained.
Yeah, like prophecy doesn't always happen. Would you agree that there are prophecies that have failed, that have been prophesied?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that basically means that just because a prophecy fails, what?
Tell him about the king of Moab.
Which one was that again?
That was the one where
Tyre?
No, I think it might have been anyway. There's a story in which God prophesies the destruction of a city through the army of the Israelites attacking. Mm-hmm. But then there's a sacrifice that's done by the king of the city they're attacking, and it stops God.
That was really interesting. I remember that one.
That's in the Bible.
It's like a win for Ocean right there, almost.
Yeah. Well, except that it was a human sacrifice, but whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't condone this.
I heard human sacrifice.
Now we're all here. But yeah, basically there are a lot of prophecies that just straight up didn't happen. And I think Jesus told Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times in order to stop him from doing it. I think it's the same reason why he said Judas was a devil. He wanted to stop him from doing that. Jesus wouldn't have had a dude roll around with him, casting out demons, raising people from the dead, healing the sick, if there was a 100% chance that dude would betray him. And Jesus didn't like need Judas to betray him. It's not like divinely, oh, Judas, if you don't exist, humankind can't be atoned for. Like, people, when they see prophecy, they put it in a box and they think it had to go down that exact way, but they don't understand the different mechanisms behind it. Like, sometimes prophecies are a warning to stop someone from doing something. And that's exactly what the situation with Nineveh was, because God knew he could have, pulled back if they repented, but his language was an unconditional statement because he can change his mind. So at that moment, he was going to destroy them in 40 days, but then he changed his mind. Now, God's a liar if he had divine foreknowledge. I hope we agree on that, because he said, yet 40 days and Nineveh will be overthrown. And that didn't happen, and God said it would. So if God can change his mind, then God is truthful, and he simply changed his mind. And that's the kind of conundrum that a lot of people have tried to get away with. I've had people say, oh, the prophecy was fulfilled. That's a stupid argument. It says in Jonah 3:10 that God relented from what he was going to do. He did not do it. And some people say, oh, the prophecy was conditional. Well, I could get a 3rd grader to tell you that's not true, because it simply says in 40 days Nineveh will be overthrown. There's no conditional language. So
yeah,
I think
that's the thing that I keep hearing Calvinists object to you about, is that was a conditional prophecy.
Yeah, they
but
just
I look
like
at the verse. There's
read.
no conditional. So
not at all. Not at all.
I don't know how they get that it was a conditional, other than like looking at the result and being like, oh well, because it didn't happen, it must have been a conditional. I think that's
basically what they do.
Sense.
But yeah, like
so Craig, what do you think about that? I want to like keep the conversation two-sided.
Sure.
The other question is, what's the book of Revelation in your mind? Is that a future event, or is that something that already occurred? Or
well, a lot of those things, God understands that those things are going to happen, and some things he brings to pass. But remember, not every little thing has to happen in that exact way for God to be God. So putting him in a box and saying, well, all these things need to exactly happen this way, that holds Revelation to an inconsistent standard that you hold the rest of the Bible to, because you admit other prophecies can fail. So that's a big problem.
I think God could also relent on the prophecy in Revelation if the conditions of Revelation never come to pass. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That makes sense to me, at least.
Potentiality. I mean, in an interesting theological question that's sort of vaguely related to this is people ask, did Jesus have the ability to sin? I think the Bible is pretty clear about that he could have chosen otherwise.
Yeah, because that's what tempted would mean. I mean, he was tempted in all points, but didn't.
The bigger question is, how does God prophesy at all if his foreknowledge is completely based on human action? How does he have any foreknowledge whatsoever? Is he now?
Well, divine foreknowledge is just a constructed concept by like Augustine, so that's kind of the main answer to that.
Prophesy at all about anything if he doesn't have divine foreknowledge? How does he prophesy ever?
Okay, I know that if I call like my sister a certain name, she'll freak out. If I have a nice conversation about subjects that she enjoys, I know there'll be nice conversations. If I know that I'm going to do a certain thing in the future, that I'm working with a few middle schoolers on their debate case. Like, I know that they're going to be happy when I give them their cases, because then they'll be able to do well at their tournament. I'm not God. I can know certain things are going to happen in the future based upon knowing what people are like. I don't need a divine foreknowledge to understand how events will play out when I have certain knowledge of what people are like and what their personality is like as well.
So you don't think that God prophesies at all? That any of the prophecies in the Bible are actual foreknowledge of events? Or when God says he put his words into the prophets?
Something I said in the beginning was, I understand what you're saying, but yeah.
It's just, you're saying God make educated guesses at the nature of the reality?
Not quite. So I think you might be able to say that they're educated guesses, but I would say that they're like super educated guesses. Instead of being omniscient, that God, I think, would be omniperspective. Like that he can see everything that's going on in the universe within the open theist mindset, that God like knows everything that is currently going on and knows all of the past. So if you have a God that has that kind of knowledge, where it's not like omniscient, but it's extremely knowledgeable, that could be a God that is definitely able to predict things well, because it has practice. It has serious practice, and it understands what's arguably its creation. There's
Is that right,
conversations
John? Is
about
that what you're
creation.
saying? Is he saying your position correctly?
That definitely fits into a lot of it. Some things God brings to pass at the same time. Like if God declares he's going to bring destruction and he prophesies that, he doesn't need to look into the future if he has the power to bring it about. But yes, that does fit into the box of a lot of prophecy as well. Both of those combined, it fits in.
Are you a Molinist, John? Like that
Me?
God is twiddling with things in order to make his prophecies come to pass?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
I think he leaves it open to human free will and then adapts.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Are you a Calvinist somewhat, or
Me?
or
Not at all. Not at all. I'm on
he's
open theist.
He's like the opposite of Calvinist.
Yeah, but what is it? What's the actual denomination we're talking
It's called an open theist. I mean, if you want to ask about like any other of my doctrine, like I'm pretty strict, but I'm an open theist. Some people consider that liberal, but not morally. But some people think it's weird morally because they believe that God has to like decide everything, or else he's not God, which is a human construct. Like Augustine invented it. That wasn't any of the early church fathers. You go to like
but you believe like some standard Christian things, like on Judgment Day, we're all going to stand before the Lord, and He's going to take account of all the deeds that we've done in our body. Correct?
Yeah, I believe the Bible clearly says those things. The only ways that I go, I mean, I'm pretty much with the early church on a lot of stuff. I'm not Catholic at all. I don't believe you have to be baptized to be saved, but I think you should be baptized. I believe in conditional security. I believe in repenting of sin. I mean, everything's pretty standard other than the open theism. Some people view conditional security as non-standard, but it's because they're ignorant of early church history and the way that Jesus's parables read. And, ultimately that's for them to sort out. But yeah, open theism's the thing I guess I would say is like the curveball. But I believe the early church held to it pretty easily.
Otherwise, almost standard issue Christianity is what you would say on most other things, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so but now, as far as my understanding of traditional Christianity, God is all-knowing, but we have free will within the all-knowing. And Jesus is the only one who completely fulfilled his divine mission exactly as planned and preordained. The rest of us have a preordained plan. And I believe this is consistent with Scripture. We can go to Hebrews in a second. But the rest of us have a preordained plan, but we deviate from that preordained plan. That's why we can miss prophecies. God wanted us to hit a certain mark on a certain day and prophesied thus, but we, in our free will, fall short of that mark. And then when we stand before God and be judged, we're going to be judged according to how closely we adhere to the divine will. And go ahead.
I think God wants the best, like for his children and whatnot. I can agree with that, but I don't think there's anywhere in the Bible that I could agree with that, but I don't think the Bible talks about God knowing what's going to happen in the future as far as a free will human decision. I see him getting very upset at things that occur that he didn't like, and that can only come from not knowing what was going to happen. You're not going to have that same emotion of being upset or frustrated or even like numb to having affection for a certain group of people who keep on betraying you. If you knew all of that was going to happen, then if God knew Lucifer was going to rebel, I don't think he would have put him there in the first place. The amount of on a scale of net benefits, I don't believe the amount of a good that will come from God getting his glory through destroying Lucifer would like go against the harm that's created from Lucifer for some reason having a lot of power, becoming, I guess Ephesians 2:2 says, the prince of the power of the air. So there's a lot that we can't really know, but divine foreknowledge doesn't do anything to solve any of those conundrums or dilemmas. Nothing whatsoever.
Atheists agree with you on some of the things that you're saying. Serious. Do atheists kind of agree with some of that, or any of the atheists?
I mean, I guess the Ocean's like the most, not an atheist, but the most non-Christian person I would say I talk to on a lot of this stuff, and I think him and I would agree on a lot of things that fall under my position, especially on like the open theism. I guess we would say that's the most logical view as far as the biblical perspective. That's what I think, at least.
There's like a handful of people that have managed to change my positions on things in this community, and I'll say that I used to think that the strongest position, as far as biblical interpretation, like scriptural interpretation, was Calvinism. But after conversations with John, I've actually flipped that, and I've gone. I think that open theism is the best interpretation of Scripture. Still not a Christian, but I think that
one step closer,
buddy. It doesn't really count.
I do think that open theism is a better interpretation of Scripture, given the examples that he's given me.
It's probably from what it sounds like it reconciles some of the issues with the Christian God without having to because like the conversation we were having just a little bit ago, Craig, about omniscience, with the definition of omniscience being being all knowing. You kind of have to bend over backwards to allow for something like free will, but open theism doesn't have to break its back for that the same way. Doesn't mean I necessarily agree with it, but it does seem like that's kind of one thing it reconciles better.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. That's why I asked you or an atheist, because some of the things that an atheist will bring up, like why did God allow Satan to fall if he knew he was going to fall? It reconciles some of those things, but I wasn't actually really prepared to think this through and talk about it right now, but I'm sure there are 100 things that pop up that it actually has trouble reconciling. That's why I wanted to ask John about it. I don't know. You seem to think that it doesn't at all reconcile prophesying, that it's totally compatible. Am I the only one that sees that God being limited, having limited foreknowledge of events, makes him incapable of having prophecies altogether? Like an educated guess isn't a prophecy.
I do agree. So I said it in the side chat a little bit.
It limits God. It definitely limits God.
On omniscient, even logical omniscience, is an omni trait, and I think with open theism, just in general, this is with any God, not just with the Christian God. Open theism, that idea of God, cannot be omniscient. It can have maximal knowledge, but I would never use the word omniscient, because it cannot, the way it's being defined, it literally cannot be an omni trait.
Right. He can't know what you're going to do.
I think that hold on, Craig. I want to make real quick that I think that the limitations that open theism provides fixes a lot of the logical problems of the omni traits of God. And that's something that I think is really interesting about open theism, that it manages to solve for the problem of omniscience. It solves for the problem of omnipotence. Like that it limits God in such a way where those aren't the logical problems with Christianity anymore. There are new problems that are kind of generated as a result of it, but I think that they're problems that are more easily addressed by the Christian than like hard logical problems, like when you get into problem of evil, if you get into problem of omniscience, problem of omnipotence, like even defining omnipotence in relation to God in a Christian mindset that isn't open theism, because it just becomes hugely difficult. But open theists can just be like, they just bite the bullet on, no, God's not omnipotent in that logical understanding of it. God is still maximally powerful, but he's maximally powerful within these parameters. And that becomes a God that's so much more easy to understand and is more in line with Scripture.
Okay, so the other question I was going to ask, when Jesus says, I tell you the truth, all authority on heaven and earth has been handed over to me, that in some ways is not true, because God has, by his own volition, by his own choice, limited his authority in dealing with us human beings. If God actually wanted to, the God is described in the Bible, he could stop us from doing anything at all times and just completely dominate our will, override whatever it is we want.
That kind of narrative.
Sure. I have a question. I'm going somewhere with this. So, okay. So God, in that situation, God has, of his own volition, limited his power when it comes to man. The question for you, the open theist, is that what you're saying God does? God is omniscient, but he is deliberately limiting his foreknowledge so that he can be surprised by events? Or you're saying he's really not omniscient? Really, honest to God,
he's not. So two things. One, he's not omniscient by your definition. That's definitely something I hold to. And second, you're just not understanding what free will is. If God's giving people free will, he loses control of their decisions. If God is not giving people free will, he can one second. He can. It's either God preordains people's decisions, or he lets them do what they want. You can't have it both ways.
Okay,
there's no determinism when people have free will. Those are not compatible.
You changed the parameters of the point. I agree. God has limited his power over you so that you have free will. You went a step further and say, so he doesn't know what you're going to do. That's not limiting his power over you. That's limiting his omniscience. That's a totally different thing.
Well, the problem, that's not true. The problem is you already failed on that point, because when Ocean asked you if God tells you what you're going to do at a certain point and you can do something else, you made God wrong. Do you understand like what I mean by that? And we'll stay on that point until it's reconciled, because there isn't a way past it. As long as that's true, then you are admitting free will overrides foreknowledge. The two can't be compatible.
No,
people have tried for hours to unlodge me from that, and they're not able to. I'm telling you that point isn't able to be proven.
That's not what, first of all, I'm not entirely sure what you just meant, but God has limited his authority over a person. That's how people have free will. Yep. In theory, an omnipotent being, if I reach for a crack pipe and God doesn't want me to do it, he could stop me, freeze me in my tracks, and therefore I cannot do what it is I want to do. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no real logical problem of evil, because that solves it. It's a problem in the human heart. Humans do evil of their own free will, of their own volition, and God does not override their sovereign free will. Now,
if God knows what's gonna, okay, I'll let you go with it. I'll let you go with it.
Now, doesn't have the knowledge of what will happen in the future of that person. And I'm asking you if he's done that of his free will. Is he omniscient and has deliberately limited it, or he just isn't omniscient? And it's
I understand the loaded question you're asking, and I can break it down perfectly if you'd like me to. Sure. If you're giving someone free will, you can't be omniscient over a free-willed being. That's what I'm saying. So if God gives people free will, there isn't an omniscience over someone who is making their own decisions. If they're making their own decisions, you do not know what they're going to do, because it's a free choice. Now, if you are somewhat in charge of what they're going to do, you didn't give them free will. There's no such thing as a soft determinism, and I think that's the main problem here.
I definitely agree. It's if there is a determinism, then it's like, and you have an omniscient being that knows the future, then what is going to happen has to be what's going to happen. And when you have, especially when that same being that is that can know the future or does know the future is also the first cause, that's where my responsibility argument starts to come in. And I think that ties into what John's saying when it comes to his t-shirt objection of, like, you know, if God tells you what color t-shirt you're going to pick out of the closet, can you pick a different one? As soon as you say yes to that, you've come to the conclusion that God can be surprised and overridden by your free will. And that's something that if that is able to be done, then God isn't omniscient in the definition that requires him to have knowledge of the future. He would be maximally knowledgeable by some other definition or some other understanding, which within the open theist understanding, he's still maximally knowledgeable, but he's maximally knowledgeable within the parameters of the universe that he's working in, which is the universe that he's the arbiter of in that Christianity.
And that's exactly. No, you're right, and that's exactly how the Bible reads, because was God saying to Israel when they committed spiritual adultery, I knew you guys were going to do that. It doesn't even faze me. I'm just chilling over here. I'm fine. No, he was very upset. And if he knew that was going to happen, why did he even try to make Israel a priesthood nation in the first place? I've never heard a good answer to that question as long as I've been an open theist.
That's another thing that open theism is a good explainer for, is when God has emotions.
Exactly.
That like why, if he knows what's going to happen in the future, then what business does he have getting angry?
Exactly, right?
Why? That
like
doesn't
insane.
seem justifiable. Why is he mad at things?
Oh, it's not.
It seems like that he would. Why is he mad that things are going exactly as he ordained it to happen, or that he knew was going to happen? Something like whenever something that's bad that happens that I know is going to happen, I'm rarely angry about it. I'm more like I give a sigh and I'm like, all right, let's go on. It's more, but in God's case, it's something that like he knows exactly what's going to happen, and he's the first cause, which means that he was in complete control over it going a different way.
Exactly.
So why didn't he do that? If he's mad at it, who's he going to be mad about? Is it the agent that pissed him off, that he knew was going to piss him off, or is it himself for creating it that way? I don't think that there's a middle ground in determinism or free will. Either God can be surprised, or God knows exactly what's going to happen. I don't think that there's a theological compatibilism that still works out with God knowing the future.
So, John, when God says even the very hair on your head is numbered, how do you read that?
It's exactly how you read God looks upon everything and beholds the evil and the good. The eyes of the Lord are in every place. That's literally God looking to gain information. He counts the stars. You know what I mean? Like, you already would lose with that because it's God seeking out the information through doing something. It doesn't say God is a pre-generated knowledge and through that he understands all that will ever come to pass. So it already doesn't read the way that you want it to read. So you're in a big conundrum. Other than that, you just sidestepped literally everything me and Ocean just said, so there's always that as well, which is fine because I hope that you can see the way it's progressing.
I'm not trying to enter into a formal debate with you, so I'm not sidestepping things. I'm asking you questions about a position to try and flesh out what exactly it means. Stop.
Oh, sure, that's fine. That's fine. No, okay, that's my mistake.
I'm debating you, and every time I say something, I'm either failing or succeeding. That's not what this is. If that's what you think it is, that's not what I think it is.
And I'd have to agree with Greg on that because we're only going to be online for about 5-ish more minutes. This is more just kind of I would say
I'm just trying to figure out how you reconcile certain scriptures and certain ideas. To me, that scripture implies omniscience. Clearly, that everything that happened, God knows. And there's another scripture, what's the sparrow scripture?
Yeah, they're both in the Sermon on the Mount. They're like almost right next to each other. Not right, a spirit doesn't fall without your Father knowing. That has nothing to do with God having divine omniscience. It just means God sees what's happening. Like when it says the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good.
Right,
none of that implies pre-generated knowledge. It's him looking to know.
So you honestly don't think that God is omniscient, and you don't think he's deliberately limited his omniscience so that he can interact with human beings, which is what I think when it comes to his authority, that he's deliberately...
Through giving human beings free will, he's lost omniscience. So I would agree partially with what you're saying, but what you have to understand is that there's no such thing as a soft determinism. So when God gives people free will, okay. That's it.
You said that twice. Why? I don't understand that. I don't necessarily think I agree with that. Why is there no such thing as a soft determinism?
If God is
deterministic. If I shoot a gun in my head, there's determined results. But within a framework that is deterministic, if I take a job, that's going to set the parameters for a lot of my future. If I take this job as opposed to that job. But within that framework, there's thousands of choices that I can make that I would call soft determinism. So why is there no such thing? That I'm not sure I agree with. Go ahead. Sure.
Yeah. So if God is okay, so for free will, God is respecting our ability to choose and judging us by our works and our decisions. If God is going to decide, I'm going to override the entire point of free will, then guess what? At that point, everything has to be perfect, or else God is failing to make what he wants to do perfect. Now, if God is saying there will be free will, that allows for a justifiable reason for there to be mistakes and for there to be sin as well. But if God says, I'm going to play a part in this, and I am going to make this thing happen, then guess what? Now there's a problem, because now not everything's perfect, and God is in direct control of what's going on. If God's in direct control of something, it will be perfect, my friend. That is what I have to say about that.
Isn't there, what you said, there's no such thing as soft determinism? So
not in the context of human free will decisions, just to clear that up.
I don't really. Ocean, do you understand that? Do you understand what he means? I don't get it completely.
Yeah, I think that the thing that makes it the kicker for me is when you have either God knows the future or does not know the future. And I think that if God knows the future, then there's no room for a soft determinism of any kind, because God knows what's going to happen.
Well, and if God doesn't know the future, there's no determinism, period.
Right. If God knows the future, if God doesn't know the future, it's still possible for determinism. That's the only way you could have soft determinism. Is if God doesn't know the future. But if God knows the future, it has to be hard determinism, because there's no way for anybody to do anything other than what God already knows is going to happen.
Right, but he was saying there's no such thing as soft determinism as a statement of fact. Like, there's no such thing.
I think he was talking about within the confines of this discussion when it comes to what
yes,
God
within
thinks.
the context of human free will. Like, he's not going to override a human when they have a possibility of deciding something else.
I have a hard time understanding soft determinism even outside the context of this.
Oh yeah, it's just a confusing concept.
Yeah.
Does God have a plan for your life?
If you submit to his will and you obey him and you believe in him, then yes. But even so, he'll woo people over. One sec, there's part two. If people are not completely turned over yet, which I believe most people are not in that state, they can have God at some point, then God is wanting them to come to him and drawing them to some extent. But that's not a deterministic mentality, because they have to repent and believe and choose him still. And he's not making them do that. Soft determinism would be like, he does get you 50% of the way, and now it's a lot easier to make the decision. Just because he enlightens you to a possibility, it doesn't mean he's forcing you to do something.
Well, I definitely agree with that. I mean, there's some things about this that make sense, but then so is God sovereign?
What do you define by sovereign? I grew up in a Calvinist church, so I get triggered by the word sovereign.
I didn't grow up in a Calvinist church. Sovereign.
I wish I was you, bro. I'm just kidding. I'm actually not kidding.
Wait, why? What's the issue there? What do you mean?
They have bad theology, man. They're messed up. I'm not saying they're unsaved. I'm just saying their theology's whack, dude.
Because of this issue or other things in general? Because of the...
I think this is one of the main issues, for sure. I think problem of evil is the main issue.
We agree that, John, that the Calvinists believe in a moral monster, right?
Yeah, God sins through people under Calvinism. Yes.
Right.
Okay, so what's the tulip, John? The tulip is total depravity.
Yep.
You is what?
Unconditional election, and then limited atonement, irresistible grace, and then preservation of the saints.
Okay, so irresistible grace you probably don't agree with, right?
Not at all. I'm a 0-point Calvinist, buddy. Yes.
And
I'm happy to say it.
What do you say on total depravity?
People aren't born sinners, or else they're enslaved to go to hell.
That's what you believe, or
I believe. I don't believe in I don't believe in original sin, because then God forces people to go to hell and they don't have a choice to obey him.
Wait, so do you believe the Bible's inerrant?
Yeah, I do. It's just that in Genesis 3, there's no statement about God making people in a sinful nature. I believe the Bible's inspired. Yeah, I'm not Martin Luther.
Original sin's not in the Bible.
It's not in the Bible. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Ocean knows me pretty well. Me and Ocean, I feel like me and Ocean are good friends. So, he knows me.
I'm trying to become friends with Ocean. Guy won't come on my channel.
It's easy. He's easy to be friends with. He's a nice guy.
I just said
you say this, but I've actually met him in real life, and he's kind of a douche nugget.
Yes, he actually tried to kill.
I've had good experiences.
I'm kidding.
He actually wanted to kill Cyrus. He met him to murder him.
I was going to
at the last minute because of prayers that I said on behalf of
Wow, man! You came through.
And I met for the first time at midnight at a Waffle House, and when I met him, he was just so lovable, and I was like, I'm not going to kill him. Fine.
I can't go through with it.
I would meet you in real life, Ocean. I think it'd be fun.
So what's funny is that he's actually.
If I would totally meet up at Waffle House with you, John.
That would be fun. I would do that.
Yeah.
What's funny is he's not actually joking. We even posted on Twitter when it happened.
You did. It wasn't midnight.
That an atheist was harassing me.
Yeah, it was midnight at a Waffle House.
It was midnight at a Waffle House. I'm not kidding.
That's eerie. That's actually eerie. I gotta be honest. That's pretty weird. The atheist and the what are you polygamous? No, you wish you were polygamous, but you're only.
I've done that before, but no, it's not currently.
You did?
That's another show right there. That's another
conversation.
Man.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an intense conversation.
I
mean, it is.
I mean, it's not. I am poly, so like, it's not a super intense conversation. It's one my channel's not exactly had issues with.
Well, with me, it's an intense conversation because there were actual tents involved.
God damn it!
What?
It wasn't an intense conversation. It was a conversation intense.
Oh, yes. I see.
Yes.
Wow, I was.
And if you were
there was a festival, you know.
So, John, you want to come on my channel and actually, I want to hear your whole story about being raised Calvinist.
Sure, I'd love to. I like that you're not hostile, unlike a lot of other like Christians who like really try to go against it. But yeah, I'd love to come on your channel.
In air quotes, guys, look out.
Why? What happens when you talk
some fire?
Christians get really mad about this?
Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Well, according to you, God's not even God," and I'm like, "Dude, just read the Bible. You'll see it there, man."
Oh, John is straight up heretic according to some Christians, dude.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of people attacking me, bro, but I think they're all jokes, man.
It's one of the things. It's one of the reasons why I like John, because it's like I'll hang out with John because like Christians hate us both. It's great.
Yeah. You're all heretics.
Hashtag not all heathens.
Look, all I'm saying
but at the same time,
if you want to know the real God.
While I think that like you know Christians are definitely going after John and they're definitely going after me at the same time, it's definitely for different reasons, and I think that John's position is definitely more vigorously biblically supported, and I think that that's really interesting, and that's one of the reasons why I love talking to John. That it like. When I see him get entangled with another Christian, I'm like, this is going to be fun. That's the reason why I brought him on here. It's the reason why I wanted you to toss him to you guys. I disagree with you on a lot, John, but I do like that this is always an interesting conversation to have.
Oh, I'm always happy to be here. Thank you to all you guys, especially Sirs too, because it's your channel, for having me here as well. I'm very thankful. It was a lot of fun.
Given that this is an after show about whether or not Christians and atheists can be friends, I think that again, me and John, we disagree on a lot, but I still consider the guy a friend. So
yeah, same to you, man.
Put out there.
Well, hell, me and my wife, I'm an atheist.
But I'm not an atheist, so I guess it doesn't work. Sorry.
Oh, dang it, that's true.
But I'm an atheist, and she's a non-denominational Christian, and she's really my best friend. So I mean, that just. Whenever this was a quote-unquote debate, to me, I was just like, this really isn't a debate. It's not even a discussion.
Well, like, so one of my best friends is Christian, and in fact, two of them are.
Yeah, me.
They're different flavors.
Me and who, Sears?
I'm talking about real-life ones. You're one of the best ones on the internet.
Okay, good.
It doesn't put you in a subcategory, even though that's by every definition a subcategory. But realistic,
it is and it isn't.
Like the funny thing is that the two friends that I'm mentioning, one of them is probably going to be building another avatar for me to use for the channel at some point. Like they actively watch my stuff, and the other one is one of my roommates. So, like on the question, can Christians and atheists be friends? Like yes, and some of them even watch all of my content and agree with half the shit I say, which is awkward.
Yeah, well, it should be awkward.
If you were to
hardcore enough, because there's Christians on your too who are like kind of agreeing with you. So,
I mean, that's fine.
Well, I've got to say that probably. I think that if the only thing that they probably wouldn't agree is if you just flat out said, "Oh, God doesn't exist," they'd be like, "No, you don't say that."
I mean, I'm perfectly okay saying it in response to like certain gods. I'll just go, hey, this particular version of a deity is logically a contradiction. It's almost like I have an entire episode on my channel where I do exactly that. So even after that, it's like, Like that is an episode on my channel.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, you're one of the gods that you pose that don't exist is the biblical God, and so I can only imagine that they don't agree with that one.
I mean, yeah, but they don't have to agree with me to be my friend.
But I can.
Oh, of course not.
For me, I've said that I think that the biblical God doesn't exist. But then at the same time, when we start getting into an open theist conversation, it's more like oh, I can believe in like a version of that God. When I'm talking about like Christians and having spiritual experiences, the open theist version of God is more akin to what I believe is happening with Christians than what Calvinists are putting forward.
So what you're saying is you don't have
a coherent position.
So you're saying you don't have aversion to a version of the God.
Oh my God. What did you just
Oh my God,
do?
literally. Oh my God.
Wow. I don't have aversion to God. No. No.
So you don't have aversion to a version of a God that begot a son to a virgin?
Oh, guys, I think RC wants in. I know you said it's almost over, but if in the future you want us both on, we'd be a lot of fun together. We always are.
Oh, I would love to have. I actually don't mind RC apologists. He's in my Discord server.
Cyrus, if we don't watch it, we're going to become a debate channel for Christians.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that that's a bad thing.
Do it.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I'm fine making that a sub show.
If you want to, if like that, you know what, Cyrus? Let's do it. Every once in a while, we'll hold some debates. Like, I know that we don't necessarily want that to be hammered out, but every once in a while, I think
hammered out will stay being a discussion stream. But right. I hold other live streams. Like the whole Biblical Gender Roles series is exclusively a live stream series.
Right. So we can do. I'd love to co-moderate with you, like doing like debates every once in a while on this channel, where it's you and I kind of like trying to do doing a soft imitation of Non Sequitur Show.
But I do want to say that RC did make a compelling case to let him in. He said, "I will pay you in potatoes."
We're about to shut down anyway, so
yeah. Unfortunately, I'm about to hit the
I would love
broadcast.
But this has gone on for a minute.
That said, my Discord is always open for these kinds of discussions. I have a civilized and an uncivilized debate channel in there for that reason, so that people can come in and depending on how nasty or nice they feel like being to one another, they can choose which channel they want to have that discourse in. And we've had,
all right, guys, we're going over to uncivilized debates.
That has actually happened before.
Switch over.
So, and it usually it's like they start saying something in general or like the Ask Me channel, and then it's like, this is a conversation that needs to be had in uncivilized. We're about to get mad. So yeah, that is an option that's there.
The gloves come off.
Basically. But that said, that is my shameless plug for my Discord, but it's not terribly shameless because it's on my same channel, so whatever. That said, I'm going to be going ahead and hitting the stop broadcast button here due strictly to time, as much as I would love to have RC on and continue on because this is a great discussion. But
it's cool. This was fun.
Thanks everybody for watching. This has been a fun conversation.
Oh yeah, and then for anybody who wants context for the conversation that we've been having, the link to James's video for Modern Day Debate is going to be it is already in the description below, so you guys can go check out that discussion there. And please go sub to his channel. I know he's not here, but I'm still plugging him because he's got a good channel. I would sub to Craig. I would say sub to Craig, but do that after he's had his conversation with Jonathan.
And also, Jonathan's channel. If we plug Jonathan's channel. He's got some interesting preaching channels going on over there at Anchored Alliance Evangelism, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you do the occasional Bible study and all that jazz. So,
yeah, and I got a lot of people attacking me right now, so it's a lot of fun over here.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, no, forewarning, John is not without his controversy. He's definitely a controversial guy.
I have people wishing like straight up damnation on me and I don't even attack them. That's the best part.
There you go.
Well, thank you all for watching. Thank everybody who hopped out and hopped into here. I am going to be over in my Discord.
Thank you.